catch it. I'm already too late to go short.
Yeah, so right. Okay, so that's what I'm kind of that's what I kind of mean there, right? So what happens is, so let me ask you, if you looked at this and go, oh man, I'm too late to go short, right? So I would
Hmm.
ask you, why do you think that?
You're on the 1 hour, right?
Yeah, I'm on the 1 hour, so I'm gonna jump down to 10.
All right. I was at the 10. Yeah, that's where I was at. So if I'm at the 10, I'm looking at it. I mean, I see it's kind of at the bottom of that, all those lower, support. Basically, it's sitting on like a support level.
So you see all these little pullbacks as support.
Yeah,
Okay, because these are
but
not
it's
supports.
like
These are sell-offs that are happening while people are buying the push, right? So
okay.
this entire move started way down here, and that is the continuation to the top of it right here, right? All these little sell-offs in here were people just hitting targets of limit order sale and then buy, and people just kept buying and limit order sale, and then boom, they pushed up, and now you had a double top, and that's where, as people started to sell, you see that this is where people realized, oh, we've already double topped, and now the volume slows down here because they're like, oh, yeah, we're already
Hmm.
oversold, we're overbought here. So now you have where you kind of have the Elliott waves where you can go from here to here, and you can slide up and say, okay, we did a 3% move, which means we're going to have a 1.5% pullback. So somewhere in this section here is where we would be looking for this to um, have some type of target or pullback, right? Now, does that coincide with any other levels? I mean, there is a level here that it showed support that it could have. There, and then you have the higher level up here, which is where this is the first time it started really selling, right? So you have that section
Hmm.
there. So you have a few different areas that could basically be what people would consider possible areas of support or resistance. Jacob, DoorDash. And so these are just targets, right? Now, what makes sense is if I measure this out, depending on where I measure, if I measure from the first move, which is somewhere down here, this is a 2% pullback, which would be right about here, right? So that makes sense as a pullback. If I measure up here, and what I'm doing is just a 50% pullback on the second wave. So 165. So it's all telling me that this perforated line is probably the best target for a pullback. See what I'm saying? So that would put
Hmm.
me at a pullback of 75.10, right? So I'm shooting for 75.13 as a target for profits, and that's that section there. And that is, when you look at it, that is going to be from this area here, a 1.2%, a 9. So there's a whole, you know, depending on where you get in here, if you got in right now, you would be sitting at a 1% target would be you'd only have to get to here. You see? So if you're looking at this, you're at a point now where from this entry to here is a 1% move. So that is if you did
Hmm.
a 30x leverage, which normally on shorts we do 30, 35, 40. That's the target right there to get 20 to 30% on what we need, right? So that's a 1% move. So
Right.
you're,
Okay.
yeah, so that's where you have to kind of like measure out because any of these targets here, if you have a 40x leverage, this will be 30% right here. So these two, depending on it, if it's a 40 leverage or a 30 leverage, right? I like to do normally on shorts, I'm above like 40 and above. So that's,
Hmm.
somewhere in there, I'm going to get my 20, percentage like that. They kind of like slide in there. So right now, we're currently at 9%.
Yeah.
And it hasn't even gone into its full move, right? So here's what I'm at right
You're
now.
right. it could still go back up to, those tops.
Yeah.
Before
I mean,
coming
so
down.
and this is where I see the push up. Then it sold off. It pushed again, and then it came down. It ate these orders. It ate these orders, and now I'm expecting where it's at right here. If it has a little bit of a bounce and then kind of break through, but it should go back to at least touching. If we were looking at something, probably this line in here for support, right? And I don't
Mhm.
expect, and if I'm looking at it all the way around, I don't expect too many people to put a support line there, because I would expect it here or here for sure. So it looks like if it
Right.
breaks this little area here, which was the last time people were putting orders, then we should have a pretty good break off to at least this section here or this section down there. Now it all comes.
So with all these little tops here, you got like, looks like a double top, maybe a
Mhm.
triple top.
Yeah, triple.
Um, yeah, that's like a resistance level then, correct?
Well, yeah.
Because
That's the
that's where it was
resistance.
before it
Yeah,
dropped off.
that's the resistance. And we had that already
Right.
drew out. Look, we drew that out earlier. See, that was that
Hmm.
earlier consolidation area it hit, and then now it's
Yeah,
retesting it.
that was that was my entry before, and I had a nice entry, but I
Yeah.
didn't sell TP.
VC,
Yeah.
can you review my last two call outs?
What do you
I just
have?
want to see uh, what you see or what you would have done differently.
All right. What is this? What trade is this? Oh, Doge. All right. All right. So walk me through. Okay. So 3-minute green, 5-minute green incoming, 15-minute RSI below 80. If you can't break through 0.64, then 30-minute shorts are incoming. All right, so that's at 4:30. So what were you looking here on this call out here? What were you looking to kind of like? Because you had your targets, and then walk me through this. I see your 3 arrows, and inside the yellow box. What's
Right.
oh,
So
that's the 10-minute. Okay, yeah.
yeah, this is mostly close to 10 minutes. So I was looking to see to confirm if it was going to break uh, the top of the top of the parallel channel and see if it's going to go if it's going to break through it or if it's going to get rejected. You see where the two arrows, one is up, one is down. So that's the price is that 07647. So that was my target. If it break through, then I know it's probably going to continue. If it did not break through and got rejected, most likely this was going to turn into a short. Because I missed the earlier long entry, so now I was looking for
So this is on the 10
you know
minute.
bounce.
So let's take a look at the 10-minute.
Right, this is done 10 minutes. This is
So
done
what
10
you're-
minutes, but
So this is kind of what you're looking for here. 764 is the continuation at this point. Let me take a look. So
Right.
that is so because you had a sideways, a breakout, a pull, and then the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one right here, right? And then you had that next push up here.
right. And then let me just explain this chart. See these arrows? Those are
Mhm.
possible entry. That would have been the green one would have been a 5-minute entry,
Okay.
and then the orange one would have been a 10-minute entry, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
But as you can see, the 10-minute and the 30-minute starting to downtrend. So I knew that since they started a downtrend, see where it says DE, one is orange, one is yellow. The orange one is 10 minutes and the yellow one is 30 minutes. So I
Okay.
noticed that in those time frame they started to
Slow down.
reverse into a downtrend, right? And then I'm like, okay, let's see if it continues, if it
Well,
does
that's
a
when
a
you see
bounce.
that. That's where you look for the next pump. So this pump right here is where you
Right.
go into your short. All right, because there's one top and this would be the third top, right? So there's your one top, right? So you'd be looking for this final pump here, and then that's the one you would start shorting because everything is in a downward trend, but it has to, like, the orders have to fill out before, because it's almost like closing the store and you got 10 customers left and they all walk up to the line at once. Right? And it's like,
Yeah.
that's what those last, that's why we're always saying short those tops. So when you hit a top here and it pulls up and it hits here, then you're like, oh, and then it starts to tail off right here, right? And then it gets a red candle like it wants to short, and then it has one last, kind of hits the limit orders and bounces up. That's where I would be shorting right there, because you already know that the 30 and the 10 are already facing down. So once I
Right.
get this pump here, that's where I'm going to take that option to short in these two candles here. And then
Yeah, I'm already in a short. I had set up a limit order for 07611.
Oh shit, okay, man.
Um,
And then so on that one, just go a little bit higher, because you have the tips over here. You see what I'm saying? So play like halfway up that wick, somewhere around there, because that was that previous top, right? Because you have a top here, then it retouches here, and then that's where you want to decide that you would play that line across right there.
I see.
Yeah, because get greedy, because there's always you're playing, like I said, right? So it's not about being in the trade; it's about fighting off the thing that can hurt you here, right? The only thing that can hurt you here is a spike of a candle that could reach, here's its top, but it could get, it could spike up into here, right? Now, once you've seen the volume changing, you know that in a C trade, it hasn't really developed any strength. So you're not going to get that bigger spike, but you still have to kind of play yourself and say, okay, these are the top sides of what I'm seeing. So if I was playing these candles here, then I would be sitting here going, okay, here's my top. I'll go halfway on that candle. And then that's where you would set your entry points.
Okay.
Just to give yourself that little bit extra. And that's because, let's say that you set it and this one comes down and it doesn't hit here, goes sideways, and then you see this red candle pop in here, and then it bounces up here, and then this candle starts to run, then you end up in a short down here anyways, which would have been 7611. See?
Oh. Uh-huh.
You'd have caught that same trade. But this one would have gave you opportunities at those higher points.
Yeah. Right.
Because you can always catch it, because once it starts to deplete, you'll see the downside of it. It'll start moving down. Because remember, it's going to go down. It's going to hit some orders that, people already put in. And then it's going to it's going to bounce. Like right now, there's going to be a little bit of a bounce here. Right, you'll see this candle kind of bounce up. And then from there, it'll start giving out again. And then eventually, as it continues with momentum, it'll start to work its way down where we need it.
Yeah, 'cause it's been bouncing off of that area 7611 for a while, for a couple of hours.
Yeah. Well, but that's a good sign too. That's a good sign, because what you're watching is it actually starting to build momentum, right? When it doesn't hold that area and it just collapses, then there's no real long positions there. It's a ton of downside there. When it's holding like that, that's letting you know that this C trade actually has some bite to it. So it could have a good possibility of getting to a good B trade and then moving on to the next thing.
Right. Probably after a 15-minute retest, probably.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to
Maybe a
pull back
30-minute,
because
maybe a 30-minute retest, maybe halfway.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to pull back. It's a C trade in here. It's building a floor. But that's also by knowing what you're looking for, That's also going to put you in a situation where at the end of the day, you're going to have the ability to be like, okay, 5-star apply. That you're going to see how strong this is, right? And the stronger it is, then you'll know that your B trades will be better, your A trades will be better, right? You're trading into momentum. That's really what you're doing is you're paying attention to how much it gives, how much it takes, how strong is it, and then start looking at all these other things to see like, okay, well, why is this holding on, right? Here's the 10 minutes above there. The 15-minute is coming down here. It still hasn't created a blue moon yet, right? But we're getting to where we broke the 10 threshold. We bounced and we didn't really get a big push there, right? So this is normally we want to break it, have a bigger push. That kind of just went flat, right? So that just means that we're in the middle of it. So it's like now as we come down, we say, well, what's the next big move, right? The next big move is the 30-minute actually doing it, right? But notice that the 30 had already, kind of fizzled out. So we can expect a decent pullback here, but we're working into some strength here. It's slowly building momentum, which is what we want, right? Because we're working into a long position here. So the more it fights, the more it builds, the better off we'll kind of be in there. The 1 hour is at the top there. So this looks like it's going to build into a solid B, a solid A trade. The 2 hours already back at the top again. So that looks like another reset. So we've got a few things that are really moving. But then again, we have our 4 hour just broke the 20, right? When did it break? 1800? So it's at 3 hours ago. So now this is where longs become a little more potent, right? So that also lets us know when we're looking at our shorts, we have to factor that in, that the 4 hour broke the 20, so now it's on its 1800 hours, so 3 hours ago. So that's why we had all these pullbacks that should have been in these zones here. We're kind of fighting the whole time because the 4 hour broke the 20, right? So this looks good. This looks like it's gonna, roll into a solid B, a solid A trade. And, it looks like volume and momentum are starting to build. And that's like I said, it's always, saying to yourself, okay, what trades am I looking for, right? You can see here we have a 4 hour trade that we want to get if it can get there. The 1 hour moon is already hit. That's where the beginning of the C trade. Now we need the 3 hour moon, which is hitting now. So if this doesn't get as much spike as it should, then we know the momentum is going to have a reset. That's where that 2 hour coming down and then heading back up, going into the 4 hour to get a bigger trade. That'll be our A trade section. So, but it's holding right now. It's not too bad, right? But this is the trade that we've been kind of like, looking for, was this to hold and build a little bit and fight this little area. So it's fighting right here. So it had a nice little pullback. It hit its line it was supposed to. It jumped because that's where people were putting orders. And now we're just seeing like, okay, how does that play out from that section there? And then eventually, once we get all these orders kind of filled in here, we'll see the next move that we have coming, right? And this is the other side of it too. It's like when you're managing your risk and your losses, and you're like, all right, I'm set up on here I got a good short at the top. I'm willing to lose, $10, 10% on 1,000, right? $100, because I know when I swing in this into the B trade, I'm going to make 40% on that. So that's where the risk and the ratios kind of come into play, because you're not going to win them all. But if you're in the right position and you're putting the odds in your favor, you're going to win more than you lose. But you also have the numbers in your favor where you're doing a 3-to-1 ratio, so you can lose 100 because you're going to pick up 300 on the reversal. So it's a numbers game.
Yeah. Mathematical game.
It's a mathematical game. The part that people miss is that you don't have to be in a trade to take a loss. You can avoid a trade with a greedy entry and say, ooh, that would have been a loss. and then turn around and be like, well, you know, that's a win now because I didn't lose that trade. So
Right.
that's all you're trying to do here is get the best entries on those trades and then watch how they develop. Right? So we hit that little level where everyone thinks there should be orders, right? We got a bounce there. It's not really holding up that well. And this is where I say short the bounces, right? So this right here, we look at this on a 1 minute spectrum, right? These are here's another entry right here. See, this is another entry that I would take for a short position in this area here. I'd be looking in these gaps here. Because every time it goes down, so far we had the hit here and that produced this movement here, which was just limit orders that were sitting on the support. Right?
Yeah.
But the real supports are going to be down here.
All right. Because I noticed that it was hitting at 720, 7620.
But you always get a bounce, man. That's what I'm saying. You're never like, you know, once you start watching it, you're realizing that you always have an opportunity to get the same entry. You're never out of the game. Then that allows you to calm down. You don't have anxiety because you're playing a systematic game versus kind of like just doing something without, you know, reason. Right? Once you plan out, once you have your moves, you know, it's like playing chess. You know, it's just the way it is. You're not always going to win at a game of chess, but you know why your rook's there. You know why, you know, why you moved your pawn there. You know why you should castle. You know, you have a plan. Now, when it doesn't work, you're like, oof, yeah, he got me on that one. But, you know, majority of the time it works for you. You got to expect these things. Or once you kind of like zoom in on the details, then you start to see the intricate pieces of the puzzle that you need to like see. And this is where once you understand the why, then you can build a systematic strategy for yourself that makes sense for you, because everyone's going to look at this trade a little bit differently, right? And then how they piece it together a little bit differently, right? That's why I use a very simple thing. I'm 10 minute, you know? And from the 10 minute, that allows me to put myself in a position where I understand like what I have going on. So I have my breakout and now I have my pullback. Here's my blue moon, right? So now I expect this to kind of like go sideways. And now we're just going to run it back on that. We're going to have our 15 minute. It broke out. It's going to tail down, right? And then we're just going to run our pullback course, right? We had a push and now we got to run our 30-minute down, see what happens. And then we go from there. Now, am I targeting, you know, the biggest, you know, profit areas, right? You know, I'm not getting greedy on my profit areas. I already know, like, you know, what I'm looking for. So I'm at 7,513 area. So I'm down in this area here, right? And that's just because I measured out the move, piece it all in there, and then I can, as I'm sitting on it, I can sit around here and decide like, okay, how do I get my 1% from here, right? My 1% would be 7,545, right? So I can move that there. I can, you know, when it breaks that area, I'll know that 7,545, it gives me my 30%. I'm just looking for a wick down in this area down here to grab off of these middle support areas here. I'm down in this zone here. I'm looking down here.
That's funny. My take profit is at 07641.
What is it?
07541.
401. Yeah.
My take profit
Yeah, you're
for
right.
this short, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So that's your 1% too. I mean, you know, that's your move, right?
Yeah, that's my 1%, yeah.
Yeah. So that's your target area, right? So what I'm looking for is, you know, because it is a C trade, it is building. You know, I'm seeing if it wants to break down, if there's nobody paying attention, you know, and if not, I'll have a 35-40%, and then I'll just close out because it's starting to show its momentum here. But so far, it's doing what it's supposed to do. I mean, it's rejecting, it's hitting, it's building, it's going sideways. I mean, it took forever to get sideways on that one piece. What that means is, like it's like I always want. What this thing is the reason why we're tracking this trade for the next, days or 7 days or 14 days or whatever we do. It's because what we're doing is we want to run a cycle. We want to go from C trade to C trade, how C trades develop, how to see a better C trade, and then get into the B trade, and then see how the B's and A trades work. So that once you understand the trades that are coming, you know that there's 4 or 5 options on these trades, 3 or 4 options per trade, and there's 4 or 5 options of trades. So you got 12 to 16 options to get in a trade, right? And that's not even counting the downside. So it's about 24 ways to make a trade. So now you just have to, whatever makes, once you understand the game, well, it's going to come down to what you go, oh, so I could just do this, right? And that'll be you.
Right.
That's your aha moment. Right? But what I want to do here is just get everybody on the same boat where you understand the rules of the chessboard. You understand the game.
I put a limit for a short at 76.24. You think it'll go there?
On a bounce?
Yeah.
I mean, you have a possibility because remember, so that's where it's like we just took that first bounce, right? And that was off of the level that you were like, I would say that this is a support line. So you called it right there, right? So that's where that bounce came in. So when you seen that bounce, that's where you would be like, all right, I'm grabbing this in here because that's my bounce, right? Now I don't know because it can hit here again and bounce again because there might be more orders there, or people might see it, right? This is what I say. Like when you're going long, you're really you're on a wing and a prayer for confirmation, right? Can it hit there and a bunch of people go, oh, you know what? I'm gonna put my order at 7,600. Like it could get another bounce. Now for me, I'm looking at it like it's already hit 7,600 here and bounced. It hit here and bounced. I don't know if there's going to be enough on the next one. It might bounce a little bit halfway, but whatever it does on that next bounce, that's the short I would look for to run in because I have a 30-minute down. Everything's starting to head down, so I'm looking for that movement. The reason why I'm asking for a deeper move is because I'm actually expecting the 2-hour to give me support on the downside. You see how the 2-hour RSI is already at the top? So I'm looking for the 2-hour to, start to go sideways, and, anything on the higher time frames that are not coming against me, is giving me, a better move in my direction. Now, if the 2-hour was down here at the 20, then I'd be like, ugh, I can't ask for that much because the 2-hour is still pushing up. The 4-hour just broke the 20 line 3 hours ago, so which means the next 4-hour movement here gets us up in here, and so in the next hour we'll see this print, and that'll kind of give us the notion of how this is moving. It could, go sideways. We don't know yet. But I can see from the volume, that's kind of where looking at the volume's a little more interested for me. I can see the volume. It's not really close to a 4-hour moon. So if I looked at the 1-hour on the volume, I can see where it's bending, you see. So if I'm starting to break that down and I go to the 10-minute, my volume is all heading down, you see. I'm nowhere near a 10-minute green moon, which would be the next pump, right? Or a 5-minute green moon, right? So here's your 5-minute green moon. What happened there? It rejected. See?
Yep.
That's really what we want to be focusing on here, is understanding the value and when it's safe and when you can take a risk. And this is all, like I said, there's going to be 36 ways to make this trade. And as we go over the basic game, you're going to decide whether you're passing or running, whether it's a screen, whether it's a counter. There's all types of ways to get a first down. You got to play your play. You got to play what you're comfortable in. You know what I mean? And right now we're seeing that the value, where's our value, right? Our 5-minute is below the 0 line.
Right. It's not, no volume there.
Right. So if I mean I can only I can go long when it's the 10 minutes above this threshold, but if the 5 minutes starting to give up and starting to fade down, well then I'm gonna have to say that my volume's gone. So now I can start thinking to myself, okay, this all looks like it's going to pull down, and I'm just taking the normal 50% target from the original move, right? Depending on where you know how you slice it up, whether you say, okay, this is the original move down here, right? And then that's the breakdown to 50% would be right there, right? Let's say that you say the original move is here. Then you got a move here that's 1.5. That means 75% would be right in here. That means your short position would be a 50% target there. 70% would be here. So that all gives you ideals of what you can get. And like I said, when you have the ideals of where something can go, that's where you just kind of measure out a 1% move. And so this is why having like a 1% box. Gotta move that ice maker. Got an ice maker in a fridge in the trade room, but that ice machine is always like it's always cranking out ice. So this is the 1%. So then you take this box. Now you have this box here. Now you're like, all right, so somewhere wherever I get in here, it's got to fit some type of narrative of where I'm going. So if you would have got in up here, then you only have to get down to this section here. If you're getting in down here, now you got to get into this section down here, right? So that's another part of the game that you're playing is you're starting to, you know, see whether or not these work, right? And this is also going to come down to understanding how volume is and what it gives and what it takes. So then you can start anticipating the moves better because you've seen what they do time and time and again. But we're going to come to another section here. That's going to be, this was that support area we were just talking about. Will it bounce from there? Now see, this time it breaks through there because it's hitting all the people that were putting orders down here, you see? So the people that bought here and there's people that bought here, right? So now we're seeing all the levels of support in this little section here. But those levels are not professional levels, right? Because professional traders are not going to decide that that's a trade. They're going to decide that the 50% mark, which is what we have over here, is more of a entry position than these areas up here. And that's why people get wrecked. Because all these bounces do is when they bounce, the people who haven't sold yet are recognizing that this is going down. See? Down, bounce, down, bounce. And now it's only a matter of time before they go, you know what? I need to start selling over here. All right. So now that's where, you know, we're kind of in that little 2-hour moment where this battles back and forth in this little area here. And then, you know, you're trying to get what, 7, 6, 2, 1, 2, 4?
Let's see, my entry
2, 1.
was 7,624.
Yeah, you're 2, 4. You're up here. So I mean, you still
Yeah.
got a decent possibility
close.
here because you know you're hitting these early movements and they're sharp moves, so it doesn't take a lot to get there. But I'm gonna say you got a 1 minute here moving. I don't really see a 1 minute green moon ready to happen, which would be the spike that you need to get there. But you're pretty close. I mean, you might get this, but that's what you have. And like I said, you got to go for that because you got to be in a situation where you're being greedy here. Doesn't matter if you miss this trade, right? The whole point is
if I miss it, it's like a win.
Yeah, it's like a win. It's
like
all right, I was close. I was trying to get there. And you start to recognize as these things come together you're starting to recognize, what's happening here so that you can piece it together and get better out of the next one. Because remember, this is the C trade.
Mhm.
We're not even in the good trade yet.
Right.
Right. So
Mhm.
that's what people have to realize. Like, don't rush into the C trade when you've got all the other trades out there.
Hopefully the A trade happens when I
You got
do it.
coming.
Get on it.
Hey, baby. You good?
Hmm.
All right. Just making sure it's you. I got somebody down here banging up the door. Let's see. Where is the cutter?
Yeah, and then on
But yeah,
and then
so what
on
you
my
want to do here is
TP,
just
if it does hit, if that does hit, I have my TP at 75.39.
you just said, man, make sure you set your profit, bro.
Yeah, brother.
I mean, you're learning. That's what I'm saying. It's a mindset. It takes a minute. It takes time. Once you get the basics down, you're like, all right, I got this.
Mm-hmm.
But that's
Joe G, what leverage are you using?
40 on this one.
see what Jesse Hopkins.
I got mine at 33.
I like that.
I did have my long was 33.
Yeah, it looked like this 07611 is a hard resistance. It just keep bouncing off of that level.
Mm-hmm.
Or support.
Yeah, if it gets me, it gets me. If it don't, I guess I'll wait.
Carlong. Here we go. But yeah, that's what we want to focus on. So when people jump in the room and they're like, yo, if people hop in, be like, hey, what's going on, man? Be like, all right, so what we're doing here is we're focusing on 10-minute value and 5-minute value, right? Because you can't, the ideal here is to, watch the volume in such a way that you start to realize where you can't do longs unless there's a certain amount of volume, right? And then all of a sudden you'll start to realize, oh, that's sharp, bro. You'll start to realize that, without certain volume, you can't go long. And then that kind of like lets you, piece together where you start to see where, you start to figure out shorts. Take that bonus. And that's really all you want to focus on. So we're going to stay in this little short here until this breaks down. But our next move here is we need to, we got to see this next move into a green moon. And then that should be where we're seeing this, the 15-minute either reject here, right? Because we were looking for here, we get a rejection out of this blue moon here on the 15-minute. Then we're in a pretty good situation. But the trade that we really want to do here is when this 30-minute starts to pull down and then starts to go back up, right? Because we got a few things that we got to. Now we got to let all this momentum go. So it's gonna be some hours here. So we'll swing back in here and take another look at it. But right now, that's where we're at as far as like watching volume, letting it play out. This looks like a solid C trade. It built momentum. It's holding momentum. And then we'll just have to let the pullbacks play out. And then from there, we'll get into the B trades and we start seeing the 15-minute, bouncing, breaking through the threshold, the 30-minute heading to the 10 line. And then we'll see the difference between the movements, right? How much did the C trade move? How much was the pullback? How much was that B trade? What was the B trade pullback? How much was the third wave? And that leads us into the A trades where we're getting into the 1 hours, breaking the 10 threshold, pulling back, and then running. So I'll hop back on here probably. There's going to be some hours on this, especially with night coming here. So probably in the morning, I'll jump back in here and we'll do it. We'll be reviewing this probably in the morning as well. But we're going to stay on this trade all week. So